currently work for the Ontario Minister of the Environment in the field of noise control. I'm a regulator these days, a bureaucrat. I've spent the last 10 years basically trying to get rid of noise after spending 30 years before that making an awful lot of noise. Started back in the 60s as a musician, playing things like guitar and harmonica. Literally one day I woke up in the morning and I said to myself, I am not going to be the next Eric Clapton, and I like some of the things that I'm seeing with sound systems. And decided to pursue that as a line of work. Immediately signed myself up to take some electronics courses, started working with bands, started building some sound equipment, which led to my owning a sound company in the early mid-'70s. I got to the point where I was working with some fairly significant artists around Toronto, doing some festival work, that kind of thing. And this was in the days when basically you had to get a pretty good-sized truck to take into a bar, a club, for one night. And this doesn't have to happen anymore because there are pretty good house sound systems in most of the significant live venues. But in those days, there was no disco to speak of. Basically, every place of live entertainment, or every place of entertainment was featuring live entertainment. They needed their own sound systems. There was nothing in the place for them. And people like me, and lots of people like me with other companies, provided it. There was also a lot of price competition. After a while, I decided that I probably wasn't going to get rich doing this, and wound up taking a technical position at the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, where I still got to do some sound reinforcement work for live recording sessions and that kind of thing in front of audiences. Also got to build and spend a number of years maintaining a 24-track remote recording truck, which was great fun, and there were many adventures there. After a while, I decided I wanted an engineering degree, university degree, which I hadn't had. Got myself into the University of Toronto, and to make some money in summer times, there I was back in sound reinforcement, a place called Harbourfront Centre in Toronto, which produces basically free shows for the public and brought in, at least at that time, almost every conceivable kind of entertainer, and had an awful lot of different kinds of live productions. I got to install some systems there, got to maintain some equipment there, and did sound system operation on a very regular basis. But I really thought at the university that I was going to wind up being a computer guy, and I thought audio was behind me. And that didn't really work out. I got out of university, graduated at the age of 36. The people that hire computer guys were not looking for somebody quite my kind of experience. They were looking for fresh young faces, and I wound up back in audio. Spent a little bit of time as a technical marketing person for Yamaha Music Canada, and then got a job back at the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, where I got to be on the design team for their Toronto headquarters building, basically working on audio systems for radio broadcasting studios, multi-track recording studios, some sound reinforcement systems, and some of the television studio systems as well. Spent 7 years on that team. Got intimately involved in digital audio during that time, which was basically in its infancy, especially insofar as wiring a building together with it. And eventually that project was over. The building was built, the building was open, and CBC, like pretty much every other major broadcaster in North America, was getting rid of its in-house engineering expertise in favor of contract firms. So I was out on the street, wound up getting taken on to design the audio systems, digital and analog, for the NBC Television Olympic Broadcasting Center in Atlanta for the 96 games, which was almost a 2-year project. And again, that was over. At which point, the the job offers I was getting were for places like South Korea and Hong Kong, and I'm a family guy, had 2 small children, didn't much want to pick up and do that kind of thing. So I wound up taking a position with an acoustical engineering firm. And frankly, I thought it was going to be an awful lot of, shall we say, concert hall acoustics, that kind of thing. It turned out to be noise control, which is rather a different world. There are some people that work in both sides of that world. There are some firms that have concert hall specialists as well as noise control specialists, but this was the kind that really only had the noise control specialists. So it was a job, and it was steady, and it was involved with sound. I learned the trade. And it has turned out that it's a field where there's an awful lot more demand than there is supply of the talent. I, approximately 5 years ago, moved over to the Ontario Ministry of the Environment, where there's a small group of people who regulate, I guess you could call it noise pollution in the province of Ontario, most of it having to do with industry. And I've been there ever since, and continue. I hope I will be there in the foreseeable future. And that's where I am today.